now joined by former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Stephen, thank you for joining us on the show.
My
Always a pleasure. Stephen, of course, Nick Timothy would say the problem with Labour is that they eventually run out of other people's money, but it does seem a little bit suspect, don't you think, that a last-minute strike was averted by Sadiq Khan doing a deal with the RMT. Is this a taste of what's to come under a potential future Labour government bowing to endless strikes, having to cough up loads of money to dodge them?
Well, no, you simply couldn't get away with that. There's no way that you could conduct industrial relations by putting more and more money on the table. It just simply doesn't work that way. Look, the reality is when we hear people, and Olivia does a very, very good analysis on these matters, but the reality is that the early years money is going to come from removing the VAT from the commercial sector in education. And as for the green taxing, the 38 billion, that was announced 2 years ago before Truss trashed the economy. Quite frankly, you can't operate economics today on what happened, without recognising what happened a few days ago. But look, getting back to this, we don't know what the terms of the deal are. If Sadiq Khan can actually do a deal with the RMT and ultimately ASLEF, because ASLEF obviously will be champing at the bit now, will he do a deal maybe to actually reduce some lessening staffing levels, to increase flexibility? Things. If there's something in it for the commuters of London, then I think fair play to him. But most people I've spoken to today, travelling on the tube today, just so glad that the tube strike is off, because this is the first day they're back at school. Many people have just come back to work. It would have been a disaster if we'd had an underground strike today. So at the moment, I think Sadiq's doing what he should do as Mayor of London, is keeping London moving.
Yeah, but keeping London moving comes at a price if there's a 5% pay offer which has to be funded, presumably out of central London, the mayor's pot. And isn't that the problem moving forward? If the Labour Party are elected, you'd have the junior doctors queuing up, NHS workers, teachers. Everybody in the public sector will demand a slice of that pie. And the fact of the matter is, where Nick Timothy is half right is that the Labour Party might run out of other people's money, but the Conservative Party have completely run out of other people's money. We're £2.6 trillion in debt, Stephen. So the spectre of the 1970s-style strikes coming back under Labour with no public money to fund it is terrifying people.
Well, it shouldn't terrify people. I mean, what's happening is that people are trying to build this up as a straw man, because in all honesty, you know and I know, Martin, you've been elected, I've been elected. There's demands on you morning, noon and night, and you can't meet them all. We all know that. But look, let's get one thing absolutely straight. When people say the biscuit tin is empty, there's no money, just look at HMS Westminster, which the government have just spent billions actually upgrading, and now they're mothballing it. There is a fantastic waste of money in Parliament at the present time. Why are we not collecting more tax from the non-DOMs? Why are we not actually enforcing regulations against people who are dodging paying tax? There's, when you estimate the percentage of the tax take which is dodged by people who can afford to pay for extremely expensive accountants, bring that into mind, bring the MOD into account, bring all those things into account, and then I think we're in a much, much more rosy situation. Now, I'm not saying that every single person knocking on the door. I think, in all honesty, the junior doctors wanting 35%. I mean, if they got 35%, they'd be paying more in tax because they'd get dragged into the higher tax band. They'd suffer from what you described as fiscal drag. So I don't think there's any question about that. But look, as far as I'm concerned, let's see the devil in the detail with Sadiq, what he's done with Mick Lynch, what he's done and what he's going to obviously do with ASLEF. But if he's managed to get some more flexibility in the working, managed to get improved working times, maybe even, Sunday working on a rostered basis, then if he's done that on a Sunday basis, all well and good. I'm prepared to support that, and I think that's a sensible thing for a Mayor of London, who's not just the Mayor of London, but he's head of TfL, Transport for London as well. If he's done that, then I'll support him for that.
But don't you think a lot of people are quite rightly afraid of the fact that, strikes could paralyse the nation if there's no money to pay them? And how would the Labour Party... We're moving into kind of different territory now. People don't remember the old days of the 70s and the 80s. I do. And it was a period where the nation just ground to a halt. And without that money, I mean, that note that was left by Liam Byrne to David Cameron, I'm sorry, there's no money left, that was like a frugal 97 billion in debt, now at 2.6 trillion. The fear is increased strike demands, no money to pay it, taxation might force people to clear off out the country, and we're heading back to the future, the bad old days of the 70s.
Well, two things I can say to that. Every single financial secretary to the Treasurer since Reginald Maudling in 1964 has left a message like that to his successor. Reginald Maudling's message in 1964 was sorry old, well, he used a colloquial expression, he left a bottle of champagne, he said there's no cash left. Every single Chancellor of the Exchequer, and it's always been Labour, Tory, Labour, Tory. It wasn't until David Laws came into post in 2010, a Liberal, that he took it and he actually thought that this was a serious note. So let's park that. Liam Byrne was just doing what every single Anthony Barber, Roy Jenkins, every other Chancellor of the Exchequer had done. But look, the key thing here is, in all honesty, you're talking about going back to, in place of strife, you're going back to the winter of discontent. That was the 70s and the 80s. Look at the Labour government between 1997 and 2010. We we had more working days and less strike days than any other government since the war. We managed to actually negotiate and keep the country running. And we didn't do it by, in Nye Bevan's expression, choking their mouths with gold. We did it by sensible, serious negotiation and talking about terms and conditions of service. So just don't judge us by what we say, judge us by what we did. And in 1997 to 2010, just look at the number of strike days that were lost. They're less than they are, a great deal less than they are at the present time.
OK, well, let's hope you're being optimistic for good reason there. Thank you very much, Stephen Pound, for
I'm not even
joining
standing
us.
for election.
Well, he's still going. Well, earlier I spoke to Conservative Deputy Party Chairman Lee Anderson about the suspension of the tube strikes, and let's hear his view.
It's the hypocrisy of Khan. He wants to see a cleaner atmosphere, cleaner air. I had to drive down to London last night because I thought there was going to be strikes on in London. I don't think certainly in my neck of the woods, Martin, is not taken serious, but in London he seemed untouchable. But he needs to get a grip, because I believe that part of his manifesto when he got elected last time was no strikes. In London, and we've seen plenty of strikes, and it's to the detriment of the great people of London.